Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to share with you the second book I've read this year, which is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is probably the first sci-fi I've ever read, and definitely the first Philip K. Dick book I've read. And from now on in this video I'm going to refer to him as Philip K. because I don't want to be saying Dick like a million times. So a couple years ago, my boyfriend showed an interest in Philip K., and so I bought him 12 of his books. I was just excited that he was wanting to read something, and the fact that Philip K.'s books have been made into movies that we really enjoy was just another added bonus, like Blade Runner, A Scanner Darkly, and Minority Report, which is probably one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't really know why. I just love it a lot. And so I wanted to see what was so awesome about Philip K. that made my boyfriend want to start reading again. And so I picked this book up, and I'm really glad I did, because it surprised me a lot. I'm just going to go ahead and read the back to you, which I know is kind of a cop-out for a review, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep was published in 1968. Grim and foreboding, even today it is a masterpiece ahead of its time. By 2021, the World War had killed millions, driving entire species into extinction and sending mankind off-planet. Those who remained coveted any living creature, and for people who couldn't afford one, companies built incredibly realistic simulacrae: horses, birds, cats, sheep. They even built humans. Emigrants to Mars received androids so sophisticated it was impossible to tell them from true men or women. Fearful of the havoc these artificial humans could wreak, the government banned them from Earth. But when androids didn't want to be identified, they just blended in. Rick Deckard was an officially sanctioned bounty hunter whose job was to find rogue androids and to retire them. But when cornered, androids tended to fight back with deadly results. So that sounds pretty exciting, right? If you're not familiar with this book, it is the book that Blade Runner was based on, but they happen to be extremely different. In fact, there are only very slight similarities between the two. And it was kind of hard for me seeing Blade Runner before reading this book, because I was kind of trying to compare them and see where the scenes matched up, but in all actuality, they're not very similar, and so it was hard to get the movie out of my brain. But anyways, the first thing that I noticed about this book was the writing style. It's very conversational and casual, and I think the book kind of reads like it was meant to be read aloud, like somebody's telling you this narrative story. And so it feels like you're more involved with the story because it feels like somebody's just telling you these events rather than you're reading a book from this outside perspective. So it was pretty engaging from the start, but it started out slow and not very developed. But I felt as time went on, it gradually grew, and then there was more tension and more suspense. And eventually, without realizing it, it had kind of taken me for this roller coaster and was getting more and more extreme and exciting without me even realizing it. I was at this climax, and there was all these things going on, and I was like kind of blindsided. So I think the pacing was really surprising and cool, and without even thinking about it, you go from not really being engaged to really wanting to know what happens next. So that was an interesting pacing. I also feel like Philip K. Gives his human characters a lot of organic feel. They feel really vivid, whereas everything else kind of seems blurred or kind of bleak. I think that he really understands bodies, and I feel like he's really observed a lot of people in his life, to where he can note down very small things that make a person a character, or body language to tell what they're thinking, which I try to put a lot of in my writing. And he also knows a lot about body systems, like adrenaline responses to stress, or pupil dilation, just like how your spinal column tenses up under pressure. Those kind of things that I had to kind of like get out of the book for a second and think. This guy was writing this in 1968, and I didn't really know how well known this kind of stuff was to people at that time, and so it seemed really cool that he knew a lot about bodies and how to describe them in a way that made the human characters feel warm and the android characters feel very cold. So I thought that part was really cool. There was another thing about the book that was really cool, which is the mood organs. And they're basically kind of like a personal alarm clock that wakes you up, and you can dial into these different settings. Like, for instance, I'm making up the numbers, but if you dial into 6, you'll get this overwhelming desire to watch TV no matter what's on. Or if you dial 600, there'll be a calm, peaceful state where you feel like going to work. Or you can even do like an 806, and it'll be an overwhelming despair and depression, and you can actually dial in to feel, depressed. So I thought at first it was kind of like a cool sci-fi element, like that's imaginative, that's neat, but then I thought about it more, and I was conflicted, like it would be really nice to be able to dial in and change your mood if you're feeling upset and become joyful, or if you wanted to wake up with a sense of purpose, you could totally do that. But at the same time, they're man-made and synthetic and fake. And what does it really mean if you are experiencing these feelings and emotions, but they're not authentic? Wouldn't that lead to more depression and despair because you know that you're not being true to yourself? So I did like that element of the story, and it came in a lot because Rick Deckard's wife, Iran, chooses to put herself in a depressive state a lot of the time, and she's stuck at home, and for 6 hours at a time each day, she's in despair and depression. And that was another thing too, was that Philip K. really seemed to understand the apathy that comes with depression, and just the overall decrease in self-worth, and even just thinking about going to the mood organ to switch it to something better had never occurred to her because she was just wallowing in this deep depression. So I liked that part of the book because it seemed to explain a lot of stuff that I have felt at times. So some of the main themes in this book are empathy, human warmth, living creatures and humans versus machines, and the illusion of contentment. I thought it was really interesting that a male author was writing about empathy. Usually we kind of think that as a feminine passion of women. I don't know, that comes more naturally to women. Empathy was just a huge theme in this novel, and it was even explicitly said over and over again. Rick Deckard eventually finds out that he has empathy towards these androids that he's supposed to kill, and it really screws him up and makes him not want to do his job anymore. And just, I think the time that he was writing in, a lot of people were not even thinking about sci-fi or robots or AI, but I think we as a generation have kind of grown up with a lot of movies about robots like AI or iRobot or any of the ones that you can think of right now. And I think we collectively right now kind of have an empathy towards humanoid robots. We just kind of think of them as secondary versions of ourselves. But at the end of the day, if a robot was coming towards you and was threatening to kill you or your family, you would choose living animals or yourself or the people around you over that machine. Because at the end of the day, it is not alive, it doesn't have the same feelings or capacity as you do, and it is a machine. So these were really just interesting things to bring up. And the fact that the human characters had this warmth and that you could intuitively tell who was an android and who was not, even before the humans realized it, was really interesting and part of the writing that was so great about the story. And lastly, the illusion of contentment was something really big in this story. Rick Deckard has an electric sheep, and it's on the roof of his apartment complex, and he goes up there and he tends to it just like he would to a real animal, and he loves it, but not the same way. And his neighbor has a real live horse and doesn't know that Rick's sheep is electric. And Rick Deckard would rather live a lie and convince his neighbor that he has a live sheep than admit that he's just pretending. He would rather have everyone around him think that he's living this happy life rather than admit what's actually going on with him. And this is something that's come up a lot for me lately. I recently watched a Japanese drama called Around 40, where it followed 3 women that were around the age of 40, and they were not married and didn't have any kids and were career women, which was not the norm for them. And they were living lives that were not along the path of the, American dream, like getting a house, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, and the dog. So they kind of had to ask each other, are you truly happy? Even if you have this offer of marriage at 40, which seems like your last chance, is this truly what you want? Are you content? Or are you just putting on a face to other people? I feel like a lot of times in our lives, we present this illusion of contentment to other people just to make ourselves feel better. We get that acceptance from them because they think that we're living out these authentic lives, but really it's just an outer shell that we present and maintain, but we're really not following our own dreams. There's a quote in here that kind of directly relates to that. You will be required to do wrong no matter where you go. It is the basic condition of life to be required to violate your own identity. At some time, every creature which lives must do so. It is the ultimate shadow, the defeat of creation. This is the curse at work, the curse that feeds on all life, everywhere in the universe. I think this directly relates to the theme of illusion of contentment. Eventually, you're either going to have to violate your own identity by going along with this dream that everybody else has for you and present that shell like I was saying, or you're going to have to violate that identity and actually follow the own path that you've created for yourself that fulfills yourself internally. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I just thought all of that was really interesting. These thematic elements I don't feel like we see a lot, especially in sci-fi or especially from male authors. So I thought those thematic elements were very interesting, and I think they'll definitely stick with me. Although the details of the story might fade away, I really do think that the elements will stay true and that I'll remember them for a long time. So, all that being said, I rated this book 4 out of 5, just because it surprised me. For a sci-fi book written by a male author that I hadn't read before, I liked the writing style. I thought it was exciting. I liked the thematic elements, and I learned a lot from it, with it only being such a short book. So, I would recommend this book if you want to pick up a sci-fi that's short and a quick read that actually makes you think. So, I hope this review was cool. I will be coming at you pretty soon to do a review of the third book I've read this year, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!